Good to have you here. This is OmniView, episode 35 for April 21st, 2026. Balanced news perspectives. Let's look at the day's news from every angle. US-Iran ceasefire deadline looms with JD Vance poised to lead Pakistan talks as both sides issue fresh threats. The two-week US-Iran ceasefire is due to expire within 48 hours. Iranian officials say no final decision has been made on attending talks in Pakistan, where US Vice-President JD Vance would lead the American delegation if Tehran agrees. Both sides have continued issuing threats even after the initial ceasefire. The situation remains fluid, with the Gulf caught between war and possible renewed diplomacy. Different perspectives on this moment are worth noting. The Guardian frames the moment as a precarious limbo where lasting peace feels possible, yet renewed escalation and economic pain remain equally likely. Bloomberg highlights Pakistan's active role as would-be mediator, underscoring Islamabad's interest in regional stability that could ease pressure on South Asia. Al Jazeera reports on concrete human and industrial fallout, such as job losses and reverse migration in India's ceramics sector caused by fuel shortages, foregrounding impacts on global South communities. CNBC notes that despite Trump's fresh threats, Asian markets, including South Korea's record Kospi, have brushed aside immediate risks, showing investor bets on de-escalation. Western diplomatic outlets stress negotiation mechanics and ceasefire fragility, while regional voices emphasize immediate livelihood consequences for ordinary people. The question worth considering: what concrete incentives exist for both Washington and Tehran to extend the ceasefire beyond the current deadline? Shifting now to economic signals coming out of Britain. Britain's unemployment rate dropped to 4.9%, surprising analysts who had forecast it would stay at 5.2%. The decline occurred in March, the first full month of the Iran conflict. Separate reports indicate UK employers simultaneously stepped up job cuts during the same period. The BBC presents the fall as a positive labor market surprise without linking it directly to geopolitics. Bloomberg connects the broader picture of rising job cuts to turmoil caused by the Iran war, suggesting the headline rate may mask underlying weakness. The Guardian's briefing cites analysis predicting up to 250,000 job losses by mid-next year as business confidence collapses, reflecting concern for recession risks. Optimistic readings focus on the headline improvement, while others highlight forward-looking indicators tied to international conflict. The question worth considering: why might the unemployment rate improve even as employers report accelerating job cuts? Next, a significant leadership change at one of the world's most valuable companies. Apple announced that hardware engineering chief John Ternus will become CEO on the 1st of September, ending Tim Cook's 15-year run in the top job. Cook will transition to the role of executive chairman. The change comes amid global market attention on technology leadership. The BBC frames the move as the start of a new era for the company, focusing on continuity after Cook's long tenure. Bloomberg's China-focused coverage examines what investors should expect from Ternus, particularly regarding Apple's relationship with its second-largest market. The Guardian notes the announcement in its daily briefing without additional commentary, treating it as a routine corporate succession. Consumer and Western outlets stress leadership stability, while business channels probe implications for supply chains and geopolitically sensitive manufacturing. The question worth considering: what does the choice of a longtime hardware executive suggest about Apple's strategic priorities? Meanwhile, European authorities continue efforts to enforce sanctions related to the conflict in Ukraine. Polish authorities fined a local company 20 million zloty, equivalent to $5.5 million, for deliberately breaching EU sanctions by selling luxury cars to Russia. The tax authority described the violations as intentional. The case highlights ongoing enforcement challenges around sanctions on Moscow. Bloomberg reports the penalty matter-of-factly, emphasizing the size of the fine and the company's intentional conduct. European officials see such enforcement as essential to maintaining credibility of the sanctions regime. Critics of the measures sometimes argue that leakage is inevitable given profit incentives. The question worth considering: how effective are financial penalties at deterring sanctions evasion in high-value goods? Turning to domestic developments in the United States, American veterans were arrested while staging a protest inside the U.S. Capitol building against the war on Iran. The demonstration occurred as diplomatic efforts to end the conflict continued. Details on the exact number arrested or specific charges remain limited in initial reports. Al Jazeera presents the arrests as a direct expression of opposition to the conflict by those with military experience, giving voice to anti-war sentiment. Other outlets have not prominently featured the story, indicating varying judgments about newsworthiness. Veteran-led protests often carry symbolic weight because participants can speak from personal knowledge of war's costs. This contrasts with arguments that emphasize national security imperatives in the Middle East. The question worth considering: what distinguishes veteran-led anti-war protests from other demonstrations in terms of public resonance? Now, to really understand several of these stories involving the US-Iran ceasefire and its ripple effects, there is something most coverage leaves out. The dominant narratives tend to swing between imminent diplomatic breakthrough and inevitable military escalation. What often gets less attention is how economic calculations, particularly around oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz, shape decision-making on all sides. Supply disruptions affect everything from Asian manufacturing costs to European energy prices to inflation pressures in India. At the same time, local communities from Gujarat to southern American towns experience concrete burdens that abstract policy debates rarely capture in full. Markets appear to be pricing in the optimistic scenario of de-escalation, even as threats continue and job losses mount in certain sectors. This creates a gap between financial sentiment and on-the-ground impacts. Next time you hear confident predictions about how this conflict will resolve, ask yourself which specific economic levers and community consequences the analysis is choosing to emphasize or downplay. Before we go, tomorrow watch for further signals on whether Iran will attend the Pakistan talks and any updates on the ceasefire extension. That's OmniView. For full source links and more context, check out today's written briefing on the OmniView summaries page. As always, compare outlets, look for primary documents, and separate what's known from what's assumed. If balanced perspectives are valuable to you, share this with a friend and subscribe wherever you listen. See you tomorrow. This podcast is curated by Patrick, but generated using AI voice synthesis of my voice using ElevenLabs. The primary reason to do this is I unfortunately don't have the time to be consistent with generating all the content and wanted to focus on creating consistent and regular episodes for all the themes that I enjoy, and I hope others do as well.
Without taking the dive, we went on vacation. We had a nice time. My doomsday